Hello, everybody. We are live. Hi, everybody. It's Ken Stearns. It's the JAR. I call it the JAR Foundation podcast. I think we're going to be moving it to call it Mental Health Today, and it'll be Mental Health Today with Constance
Scharff, yes.
Scharff,
Just
and
Scharff.
Scharff. Okay, so I'm trying to make it too hard.
No,
Um,
you had it right.
yeah, I was trying to make it too hard. And so it's really bringing people who are in the mental health space or have some, profound experience through the mental health space where they want to share, and they've got something, a journey to share, or an idea to share, or a passion about being in the space and what they're trying to do, how they're trying to help people or connect people. And I've met so many wonderful people already, Constance. It's like magic. So I'm really looking forward to hearing your story
Thank you.
and sharing it and letting other people kind of share in it. And I hope we get some, people listening, and hope we get some comments. Um, so who are you? How did you get to this chair? What's going on? And that's it.
So,
Yeah.
so I, out of in university, trained in international development. I wanted to go around the world in the global south and look at international development projects, primarily focused on women and girls,
Okay.
and community justice and equity and the environment, right?
Oh,
Make the world a better place.
so young and so aspirational, right?
Right. I lived in India. I lived in Kenya. I lived in El Salvador. Did a research project in El Salvador. I was only there for a month. And that's what I thought I wanted to do. The problem was that I was an alcoholic. And even at that young age, I drank 2 liters or more of hard liquor a day
Oh
in
my God.
1992. When,
Whoa.
or no, 1995. I was drinking that much every day.
Good God.
And I had had significant childhood trauma.
Okay.
So when I walked across the stage at graduation, I realized not only was I unemployed, because I never thought of college as, a means of getting a job. I thought it was a place where you go to learn. So I realized I was unemployed, and I also realized that I was an alcoholic, and there was no point in, trying to find a job, climb the corporate ladder, because I was going to die. So by the time I was 22 years old, my liver and kidneys were giving out. You could see them. And so I lived in Scotland for a little while, came back and did outdoor school. And long story short, my father died very suddenly. And he was the one who had abused me so badly when I was a child. And I thought, I drink as much now that he's dead. I mean, this is like 4 days after he's gone, right? I was like, I still drink so much. I thought I drank because I was terrified of him. And in the few days after his passing, I realized I drank because I couldn't stop drinking. And so I got sober. I used a 12-step program because, keep in mind, back in 1995, that's kind of what was available.
Oh, that's it.
There,
That's it. Yeah.
yeah, there was 12 steps. You could go to rehab, a 28 or 30-day program. We called it a $30,000 big book because they were all 12-step based, right? So you went and did 12 steps, So I got sober using a 12-step program, but I couldn't stay sober because I had so much trauma. And back in the mid 90s, there was not good trauma treatment. So it took 2.5 years for me to get sober. My current sobriety date is June 29th, 1998. I originally started trying to get sober November 11th of 1995. So about 2.5 years, a
No,
little bit more.
but maybe pretty typical.
Absolutely. But I point that out because I didn't get sober day one and stay sober day one. I was sober most of that 2.5 year period. I
Yeah.
certainly wasn't
Yeah.
drinking, 2 liters of liquor a day at that point. But what really got me was the trauma, because I'd stopped drinking for a little while. There was nothing to be done for the trauma symptoms. And of course, at some point, you'd have to drink again to tamp them down, because I had them all. I had flashbacks, body memories, dissociation, hypervigilance, et cetera, and so forth. So I was sort of struck sober, which is an interesting story for another time. But I was struck sober, and
Sober.
I was miserable. and I'm suicidal half the time, and I'm barely getting through the day. And at that point, our veterans started coming back. I'm years sober at this point. Veterans started coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan. I lived in Los Angeles at that time, and I went to my regular 12-step meeting was right near the VA. And so
I know where that is. Yeah.
those veterans would walk over to that meeting on Fridays. And I was the court card signer, right? There for so that people, said that
Yeah.
for their house, right? And I got to meet those veterans, and they weren't staying sober. And they had many of them had terrible trauma.
Yeah.
And I thought, and then one veteran who I really, really liked, he was, oh gosh, probably 23, 24. He was a Marine, married, infant child, and he killed himself because the trauma was
Mm.
too difficult without the drugs and alcohol. Most veterans don't use drugs. Most veterans use alcohol. They use what's legal. Veterans
Yeah.
tend to follow the law.
Yeah.
So we're mostly dealing with alcohol, but he just couldn't do it. And I got it. I understood. I was like, yes, I know what that's like. And I was in grad school at the time, and I thought, there has to be something better. I didn't get sober to be miserable. These folks are not staying sober. So what can we do? So
What?
again,
Yeah.
I was
What? Yeah.
looking at international development, and I had gone to Namibia and all places and all this to do this development work. And I was like, no. And I switched everything that I was doing in grad school, and I started looking at complementary and indigenous methods of treating trauma. And
Oh.
or mental health in general, but specifically trauma is my
Yeah.
interest.
Yeah.
And looking really at the intersection of addiction and trauma. And that's what I started doing. And so what I did is, you know, the American healthcare system is a for-profit system. And so what you know, healthcare providers on the whole, not individual doctors, but the big,
Yeah.
healthcare systems, what they want to do is they want to manage your symptoms as a chronic illness. It's the best way to keep profits coming in, right? If you have to go to the doctor 4 times a year, right? And they prescribe you medications, and you can take this medication, but not that medication, and blah, blah, blah. I wanted to switch a medication that I have, and, they're giving me all sorts of, hullabaloo about it. It's like, well, the medication you want me to take, I've been on for 3 years and it doesn't work. So maybe it's time to try the medication that all my friends are taking and it effing works, right? So, but it's a for-profit system. There
Yeah.
is no impetus in our system for you to get healed.
Agreed.
So what I look at are those complementary, in medical parlance, it's called CAM, complementary and alternative medicine, CAM medicine.
Okay.
So I look at these therapeutics. They are not always given by doctors
Yep.
that have few to no side effects. So I don't look at medications at all, because it's a whole different kind of research.
Yes.
So for example, my last book that came out in 2020, basically I'm an author. I love writing.
I was going to say, I did notice one thing, man, you are prolific.
Yeah, these are not all mine.
but by the time you pass, you may feel a library.
Right. So I the last book I wrote, Rock to Recovery: Music as a Catalyst for Human Transformation. I looked at this organization, Rock to Recovery, which has musicians, rock stars, really, in recovery themselves from addiction, who go into treatment facilities and write and record songs with people. What my job was, in addition to writing the book, was to look at the research behind music
Okay.
and mental health. Now, let me give
Okay.
you an example, from the research. If you are having a bad day and you get in your car and you're stuck in LA traffic, like I often was, and you do your own carpool karaoke, like you don't care who's listening, and a song you like, right, comes on the radio, and you
Okay.
sing along to it, what
Okay.
happens?
Oh, my mood goes up.
Right, you feel better.
My adrenaline, I mean, the endorphins release,
Right,
everything's
so
happening.
it's oxytocin, serotonin, and dopamine
I'm
that
I'm
get dumped in your brain. So
Okay.
so you can do this on a regular day. So if you're just a regular human being with what we would call average neurochemistry, your
Okay.
brain is producing the chemicals it's supposed to
Supposed
do
to do.
produce in the way it's supposed to, and
Right.
you sing or hum, and it doesn't matter if you're good. Your brain doesn't know if you're good. It only knows that you do it. So you could be off key, flat, tone deaf. Nobody cares. Your brain does not care. So you and I, if we have normal brains, average brains, are going to go from here to here.
Yeah.
Now imagine that you have severe trauma, that you have addiction, and your brain is not producing those chemicals in the average way. You're going to go from the basement to here. You're going to
Really?
get high. You're going to feel so good. Your whole brain is going to light up. So it gets you out of those thoughts of, I need to use, I need to use, I need to use, I need to use, because that's the boring part of addiction. You're always focused on getting the next, right? As soon as you come down enough to not be, high out of your skull, it's where am I getting? Where am I getting? Right. So it takes you out of that feedback loop, and it makes you feel so good that what we found is you're going to engage in programming afterwards. We're going to get at information. So you're writing your own song, you're going to get at information that maybe you can't get to in talk therapy. So when I started
Um,
talk therapy at a year sober and had a wonderful therapist for 10 years, 10 years, every week, sometimes more. The first 2 years, I could not say the word incest. I literally, it wouldn't come out. I'd write it down, what I wanted to say before I went to the session, hand her a little note, and I'd be so dissociated, I wouldn't come back to myself for a day. The next day, I'd be like, oh, I wonder what I said to my therapist.
wow.
Music circumvents that. So what are the side effects then? What could happen? You don't participate, so you don't get the effect. You're like, to hell with
Right.
you. It's too goofy or dorky, or I don't sing well. You judge yourself, whatever. You don't finish the song. You write about something. Rock to Recovery would very often work with adolescents, and sometimes I'd write a song about how the pizza sucked at lunch. Okay. Like, it doesn't always have to be like doom and gloom, but so there's no side effects really, but the positives are huge.
Man.
That's what I look at. And I try all of these things on myself. Now, not everything works for everyone.
Yeah.
That's fine. No big deal. But I want to know, as a, not only as a practitioner, but also as someone with trauma, what works and what doesn't. And so I found things that work. Now, one of the things in my first book, Ending Addiction for Good, we talked about is none of these therapeutics on their own have a very good outcome. So if you just sing,
Okay.
right? Why are there so many rock stars who OD, right? If you just sing, if you just meditate, if you just journal,
Uh,
right? If you just do yoga, if you just do acupuncture, none of them have a very good
yeah.
impact
Okay.
on recovery. But, and we don't know what the mechanism for this is. If you do them together, they have a synergistic effect and have an outcome that's more than the sum of their parts,
Makes sense somehow.
right?
Right. Somehow intuitively, you're like, that makes a lot of sense.
Right. So part of what we think is happening, and again, this is not proven, this is at the cutting edge of science. Part of what we think is happening is that addiction, in particular trauma too. So addiction is basically being stuck in a rut of, I need to use, I need to use, I need to
Mm.
use. You need to use, you use, then you need to use again, right? How are you going to get the money? How are you going to get the drugs? How are you going to get over to the place? Like, it's all about so it's a continual feedback loop. In neuroscience, we say what fires together wires together. So if you keep doing or thinking about the same thing over and over, it makes that neurological pattern stronger.
Yeah, you get really good at it.
So that's where obsession comes from, right? Is these neurological patterns, right? I think about using all the time, so then I'm going to
Ah,
continue to think about using all the time. The more I do that, the harder it is to break. Then you have drugs like fentanyl that really kind of knot the brain up into that pattern too. I mean, so it makes it more difficult. Trauma, essentially. I mean, this is not the American Psychological
okay.
Association definitions. A trauma is essentially being stuck in the past. And so I create a feedback loop about the past. And in my case, I'm terrified. He's coming, he's coming, he's coming.
He's coming.
My father is dead, I don't know, 28 years now or something.
He's not coming.
He's not coming. But he, in my mind,
Yeah.
he is coming.
He's there. Well, he's in the room probably.
He's
almost.
in the room. Well, I could
Yeah.
used to be able to, it doesn't happen anymore. I used to feel him breathing on my neck.
Fuck.
And I'm terrified.
A physical reaction to an imaginary.
It's called body memories.
I mean, it's a real memory though.
It's a real memory because I also have trauma-based amnesia. I don't remember hardly anything, a few very vague memories from the 3 years in which my father abused me the most. I remember the first instance of the abuse, and then my memory is almost gone until he had a girlfriend. Girlfriend I use loosely. My mother had left. He had a girlfriend who was a prostitute. And she used to come over in the morning. My mom had gone with my brother to live with her mom. I was still at my dad's house. And she saw me on like a Tuesday. I was 10 years old. And she saw me on like a Tuesday morning before school washing my sheets. Now, not only is she an adult woman, but she's also a prostitute. And she's like, kids don't wash their sheets on a Tuesday morning before school, right? She looked me in the eye. This is 82. She looks me in the eye and she said, he will never touch you again. I do not know what happened when she walked into the house because I went to school, but he never touched me again. That's where my memory picks up. So my savior is a prostitute who probably didn't make it through the AIDS epidemic.
What a lovely person.
Right? And talk about like no power, like in terms of like, sociocultural power, but she's like, he's not going to touch you again. And he did not. She was true to her word.
Wow.
I have amnesia for most of that period. I mean, like vague things.
You have to.
I remember.
You have to. Your brain
Right?
would block. You have to block trauma like that.
Of course.
out.
And I don't need to try to chase those memories. I have,
No.
there's no need for it. So, but I'm trapped in the past. But my
Yeah,
body,
yeah.
the point is my body remembers. The book Van der Kolk's The Body Keeps the Score, is sort of iconic in the trauma literature. And it says, well, your brain might not remember, but your body knows. And so I would feel this whenever I get into some sort of situation. I'd feel this, him breathing on my neck and be absolutely frozen. The other part of that is I was groomed. And so people who are predators in the same way that my father was pick me out, and I would have predators approach me. I was at the mall once. I was like, maybe like 24, 25. I was at the mall in Northridge, California, and I was sitting in a table. So, the tables or is in a booth, and the table and the chair are connected, right? You can't just like flip the table over, right?
Right.
So I'm eating. I'm a big lady. I was much bigger then. I was about 320, 325 pounds. And this man walks up while I'm having my lunch, looks at my chest, looks me in the eye, looks at my chest, looks me right here. And he's like, I'd love to stick in that, like staring at my chest. And I was just like, that does not happen to my girlfriends.
You're looking around the room going, what?
But it doesn't happen to my girlfriends.
Yeah. Because why? Because
I've been groomed and I don't see them coming. So that would happen to me once or twice a year. Well, every time that happened, I ate everything I could because I heard my father once say, I don't like to have sex with fat women. Oh, well, that's great information.
That's good self-preservation data.
Right? Great information. So I get to junior high and they have cupcakes to buy at snack. And I'm like, yes, please. Right? So I would just eat.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I thought that if I became such an immovable mound of flesh that no one would be interested. That's not true. That's not true at all. Heavy women get assaulted just the same way skinny women get assaulted. That doesn't make any difference. That's why I work with, personally in my doctoral work, I work with narrative. I'm a writer. I like stories. I don't
Uh,
deal with capital T truths. I don't know like the nature of the universe or how Big Bang, and I don't know. Is there a God? I don't have no idea. But deal with what I call little T truths. Is it true enough? Is it
oh,
true
yes,
enough?
yeah.
And so I can pivot. I can just pivot. So one day I was saying to a friend of mine, I was like absolutely terrified. This lovely man who I knew, we both were working with the same group of veterans. And we were at a hotel in uh, National Harbor in Maryland, right near
Okay.
Washington, D.C., just outside of
Okay.
Washington, D.C. We were at a hotel, and I was standing in front of the elevator to go up to my room. And this man, who I've worked with for like a year, I know who he is, very lovely. We're standing in the lobby with at least 40 to 60 other people. We are not alone. He says, "Oh, are you going to the Thanksgiving dinner?" It was a week before Thanksgiving. "Are you going to the Thanksgiving dinner tonight?" And I said, "No, I'm going to have dinner with some friends of mine that I was there working with." He said, "Okay." And I got into the elevator and I went to my room. He triggered me because it felt like he was asking me on a date, which he was not. Let's be clear. I went into my room. I barricaded the door with a chair. I locked myself in. I'm absolutely terrified. I can't breathe. I called a friend of mine who was back in California and I said, such and so, just, talk to me. He said, "Oh, well, did he try to?" And he knows who he is. He said, "Did he try to get into the elevator?" "No." "Did he follow you to your room?" "No."
Yeah.
"Has he tried to do anything at
Like
all in
call
any
you or
way?"
yeah.
Right? Right? Because all he did was say, "Hey, are you going to the big event that, like, I don't know,
That everybody's going to.
400 people are going to go to tonight?" And I said, "No, I'm going to go out with some friends." And he was like, "Great, see you tomorrow." I mean, there was nothing inappropriate, but I was triggered.
But for you, it was, yeah.
Right. And so I'm like, I must eat all the things. And he said, it's not true. He's not going to hurt. That guy's not going to hurt you. And being heavier is not going to do anything. And for some reason that day it landed. When he's like, "That's not true." I was like, "That's not true." And I immediately, without changing my diet or anything, exercising more, whatever, I lost 70 pounds and 75 pounds. And I've kept it off for, I don't know, 4 years now.
Just from the one phone call, at least you reached. I
Well,
mean, what an important
it
thing,
was from,
reaching out.
it was from that little T truth.
Yeah, yeah,
It's not true.
yeah,
First of all, my father slept with whoever he could sleep with. He didn't care if they were fat or skinny or whatever. I don't think my father actually was a pedophile. I think I was just available
yeah.
because I saw the other women that he, went out with, and they were mostly women he paid, and they were, women and all sorts of sizes. Who was
Mm,
available at
like you
2 in the
said.
afternoon on a Thursday, right? Like
Yeah.
that's what he was interested in. The other thing that I learned from this is I started using a program of somatics. Somatics are body-based therapeutics. Because one thing that
Mm,
trauma survivors don't know how to do is we're not in our bodies. My consciousness is usually somewhere out here, behind my eyes and up and out a little bit. Like I'm not anywhere. Sometimes I'll see you from like way far away behind my head back here. It's like you're way down a tunnel. I'm not normally here until the last few years. I started doing a somatic program, and there are other very good somatic programs,
okay.
but I started doing something called radical aliveness. And what they attempt to do is get you into your body. See, here was the problem with talk therapy. It didn't do anything for me because I can tell you the whatever story and have absolutely no emotional attachment and be so dissociated that I won't even know what I've said to you for 2 days.
Yeah, and I don't see you as that talking person. No.
No, no. I had
Yeah,
to learn that
yeah,
it was safe to be in my body. So,
yeah.
like I said, I'd have these body memories where I feel my father breathing on my, well, no. Why are you going to inhabit your body if that's what you feel? And that was sort of,
Oof.
I share that one because that was one of the more mild. There were some that were much more horrific. right? So why would you want to be present for that? What I
Good.
learned
Yeah. Okay.
through radical aliveness was that it's actually safe to inhabit this space.
What does that feel like now? I mean, you're only coming into your own body in these last few years.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's starting to feel normal. Um I think the most profound experience is being present emotionally. Like, I'm not seeing you from up here or
yes.
back behind, like, I'm present with you right
Yes.
now.
Yeah, I feel that.
I can connect to people in a way I never could before.
It's
Like,
hard.
I
Yeah.
have these godchildren in Australia whom I love. I adore my godchildren. But until the last few years, if they were in the room with me, I didn't feel it. The minute they left, "Oh, they're gone." But when they were here, shut down, shut down. It is a trip to be able to feel my body. So when I drank, now I'll be 25 years sober at the end of June, right? But when I drank, I would feel my finger. And when it felt like wood, that's what I was going for. I wanted oblivion. I wanted to feel nothing physically, emotionally, nothing. Now, I'm a good alcoholic, so I'm going to keep drinking till I fall off the bar stool and pass out. But I wanted to feel that nothing. Now, but when you're sober, that sucks that to not be able to feel or connect in your body or anything like that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But
Very disassociative.
but I learned through radical aliveness. I'm like, wow. So like right now where I am, it's a little bit cold. And so my feet tend to be cold, but I have these really nice slippers on. And I can so all of those, it's not just about sex or like the great food or a hug or whatever. It's not, those are all nice, that's all great, but those little things, like I just got these flannel, I don't know, 6 months ago I got these flannel pajama bottoms that I just love,
I
and
love it.
like freshly shaved legs in the warm pajama bottoms when you get into bed, or like first thing in the morning when you're like, "Ooh, I have some time and I'm just gonna snuggle under the covers with my dog." Like,
Mm.
yes,
And
like
you
though
have all those feelings, like the small little, it's new to you.
it's becoming normalized.
That's
It's
so wild.
it's becoming normalized because of radical aliveness, and they taught me little by little by little. But I remember, you know, one, they're like, "Can you just dance or move?" I was like, "No, no, and get
Really?
away from me and don't touch me," and all the things. And now I'm not a big dancer, but I'm like, yeah, I can be here. I have had to give away all my cashmere sweaters because I lost so much weight, but I treated myself and I bought a new cashmere. Because why? Because cashmere is awesome next to your skin. Like, it is fantastic. And so I get to have those experiences now. Oh, I think I've lost you. Keep talking.
Yeah.
Oh, there you are.
What is it like to, and I can see I can't quite figure it out. Something's happened to my Wi-Fi today. Um, what's it like to write disassociated? Because that's like, I
You
mean, for
can't.
me,
No, you can't.
yeah,
If you're going to be if you're see this is probably why I'm a writer. I'm an artist. All I want is to do my work,
yes,
right?
yeah,
I have jobs, whatever. I write. That's what I do. You cannot write dissociated.
yeah.
So, for example, when I first got sober, I was put on antidepressants
Oh no,
and I stopped taking them because, well, they
no,
put a floor, right? I couldn't feel anything.
no.
So and the artist, the writer, the dancer, whatever form, it doesn't make any difference. I have to be able to feel. And I think that's why I've been so forceful in my pursuit, so,
Um,
adamant in my pursuit of, what this looks like, what healing looks like. I love that I can pay it forward. I love that I can pass it on. That is great, um, um, greatly important to me. But I also, I mean, in the academy, there's research is mostly me search, right? There's usually some sort of selfish, reason for doing something, and I have that I'm like, I want to get better. I want to help other people too, but I want to know it works because it worked in my life.
yeah, I like that way you said that in the beginning, where you kind of came to that conclusion that testing it and develop it and kind
And
of
there are
find
things that
what's
didn't work
working.
for me, like EMDR. It didn't really work for me, but I also saw it work for other people. And again, what does it do? What you kind of wiggle your eyes around with some lights, or tapping, right, which works on the principles of acupuncture. I mean, okay, like
I
there's
think
no
you needed more than
downside.
tapping.
No, I definitely, well, no, I needed the full on
I know,
acupuncture, and boy,
I
did that help.
know.
But the other thing that we learned is that the opposite of addiction is not sobriety. The healing for addiction is actually connection. It's love,
It's love.
right? So if you have a rat, all this ideas, they all come from the rat studies. If you have a rat in a cage and you give them cocaine water or heroin water or whatever, they drink the heroin water, the cocaine water, the drug water until they die. But if you put a rat in a rat heaven, right, in a rat playground where there's other rats and things to do and whatever, hardly any of the rats, they'll taste the cocaine water, heroin water, whatever, and then they don't do anything with it. Why? Because it's a rat paradise and they don't need to.
Oh, I never knew this
So part
study.
of the learning not to numb my body and to be present in my body gave me
To
the
make
opportunity to be an actual connection,
Yeah.
right? And so now I can say to, such and so, hey, not having a good day. This is happening.
Right. Huh. So interesting.
So that's where the research really is, and I think the difficulty for someone like me is that this kind of research isn't valued in the United States, so there's no money to do it. The other part is that if you go and speak with people from indigenous communities, tribal communities, marginalized communities, and so forth, they have this in spades, but it's not valued because what's valued is the selfish mine I'm going to get, right? Earning money, that kind of
Yeah.
focus. So I was at a party very, I think it was like the October 1st, end of September in Australia. And there's a new LGBTQ center in St. Kilda in Melbourne.
Okay.
And I was at this big party there, and they have these beautiful murals of, you know, LGBTQ people doing what they do, right? Whatever. And
Love
one of
stuff.
them was, I don't know if it looked like they may have been getting into drag or just, getting ready for a party. I have no idea. But I looked at this mural for a long time at the party. And what struck me is how that community, maybe more than most others, really values you being you.
Yes. Oh,
And
for
there was
sure.
there was
For
a
sure.
a person there with a full beard and a caftan and fluttering around and taking pictures. They were there as a photographer. And then there was, a woman there with the quintessential, like very butch, feathered sort of, hair with all denim and cowboy boots and the whole, and was like, "Hey," to my friend and I, like, "Hey, are you ladies coming to the, concert?" And I was leaving the next morning, so we were not. But I was like, "No," but and he was like, "All right, do your thing." And I was like, there is something that we, whatever dominant culture you're talking about, whether it's
Yeah.
USA or China or whatever, that we can learn is that, when people get to be themselves in the freest expression of who they are and don't have to fit some role that we've assigned to them, their mental health is better. Just so trans individuals have one of the highest addiction rates, one of the highest suicide rates, all of the they have on the whole
Yeah.
difficulties with mental health. Why? Because they're mentally ill? No, because they're so trod upon and
Hmm.
and bullied and dismissed and mistreated by society
Yeah.
from their families of origin, their workplace. Here in the United States, we've got all sorts of laws that were protecting them being rolled back, all the things. So how do you cope with that? You cope with that by taking drugs that make you not feel things.
Yeah.
You cope with that by, ending.
Or yeah, and the drugs will end up leading to mental health issues anyway. So
Well,
you'll end up
they can. I think now one of the reasons that I survived is that back when I was using, so back when I started using when I was 11. So when I was 11 or 14 or 15 or whatever in rural Oregon,
Jesus.
it was very hard to get your hands on anything. There were no, oh, you could get alcohol with some work. Sometimes you could get marijuana, which was not nearly as strong as what's now, all the, grow.
Yeah,
No, it
it's
was like,
not enough to get you,
no,
not enough to make your finger feel like wood.
no, no,
It's
no,
not
and
gonna get you there.
I've never been. I couldn't. I've never learned to inhale properly. That's why when Bill Clinton said, "Well, I didn't inhale," I was like, "Why is everybody laughing? I can't inhale either." So, yeah, there was that. But and that was it. Occasionally meth. Occasionally. Now in rural areas, there is so much opioid and
Yeah.
specifically fentanyl. People just die. Just the first time you use, die. And so that's the only reason I'm alive, that I'm not a statistic, is because it just the things that kill you. So I think now, and that just, we had over 100,000 overdoses.
I
That's not alcohol related. That's just overdoses, most of them from fentanyl. And now that's become, normal, and it's not even covered in anything anymore. And people say, well, send him to the Suboxone clinic and send him to the methadone clinic and see what happens. And, and I'm like, that there is real freedom available. There is real freedom, but you have to have long-term treatment. You
yes.
have to have, we have known for more than 40 years, almost 50 years now, that to really get someone sober, it takes a year.
I was gonna
But
say, how long does it take? A
yeah,
couple of years,
it takes a
almost.
year. It takes a year of supportive care, not a year in residential, but we know it's usually 90 to 120 days in residential. Now you're lucky to get a week. The insurance companies are
What?
required to give you a detox, but you're not getting 28 days. Your insurance company is going to kick you out, and they're going to put you in a lower level of care, step down level of care, which is usually outpatient, right? And some sort of sober living.
It's
And
good
how do you
night.
fail? How do you fail? You fail by relapsing, and then you die. Because what's the most likely time to die is after you've been detoxed, right? When your body is no longer used to using
Yep.
whatever level you were using, but your brain is still used to that level. And boy, that's a real quick way to get you off of the insurance company's margin sheet. I mean, I hate to be that pessimistic about it, but you don't see this. I was giving a presentation in Ljubljana, Slovenia, and a colleague of mine invited me to his treatment center to speak to his,
Hmm.
patients. And they couldn't believe it. Like, well, how long do people stay? I said, well, if they, have really good insurance, maybe 30 days, but mostly and they were like, I was like, how long do you stay? And they're like, this woman, most of them spoke beautiful English, like as their like 15th language. They all spoke so many languages.
I know. So
But
embarrassing.
this woman, she said to me, we stay here until the doctors say that we're okay to leave, and then they go to a step down level, which is an assisted living with, so they have these services that we don't provide. I worked for a treatment facility in Malibu, and we wrote the book Ending Addiction for Good. And one of the things that we would get slammed on in the press was that we had over a 90% recovery rate at 1 year. So people at 1 year, when
Wow.
we're still sober, And, I've been asked, well, how did you do that? I was like, it's not because it was magic. Like, we did use this treatment protocol. That's good. And there's lots of places that use good treatment protocols.
Yeah, I would
But
imagine, yeah.
why did this work? And I was like, because this was before that treatment facility was sold and we didn't take insurance. So people could stay for 90 to 120 days, and then they had a step down level of service, but they still had. So when people left and went back to wherever they came from, they didn't just have the name and number of a therapist and the name and number of a 12-step support group. They had the name and number of a therapist, and their first appointment was set up, and with a nutritionist, and with a massage therapist, and with an acupuncturist, and with a psychiatrist, and
Yeah.
with a all set up. They went home probably with a sober companion, someone who helped them to get from the treatment facility through the airport that's filled with bars, through the airplane that's filled with how much do you want to drink, to their house where they got their house cleaned out. So they had a chance.
A chance. Even then, it's only a chance.
Right, but if you have that much
Oh,
support,
no, it's, I mean, yeah, like, even
right?
but
But
you have
I'm like,
0 chance without
right, but
that.
I'm like, how do you expect someone to make it on their own when you're just doing, we call it spin dry, right? Where you put them into rehab, get them detoxed, and then say goodbye, go back to the streets that you just came from. They don't have any chance. They don't have
Yeah,
any chance.
that's
So I was like, it's not a surprise to me that we had this great recovery rate. That's not a surprise. We just gave people the services that
yeah,
we
yeah.
knew they needed. End of story.
Is it fixable? I mean, can we get to that place? Because it's a little scary with the amount of drugs coming in, the amount of people that are facing not just the drugs, but just mental health in general, and it seemingly an explosion or a crisis, um, by all accounts, a crisis. And it does seem like we don't have really good systems in a lot of ways.
We
And
don't want to. Is it fixable? It's easy. I've just told you what the solution is.
yeah,
I could line up 100 other doctors, research scientists like me, physicians, mental health, psychiatrists, mental health work. They're all going to tell you the same thing. We don't have the
dang.
will, because what it would take a national healthcare system.
It would take a national healthcare. This one for this situation, I'd agree that
It will
there's only
take a
one.
national healthcare system, because and it needs to be a nonprofit system.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, if it's
There
national,
are certain things that I don't know that we need to profit from. Do we need to profit from the roads? No. My road out here is not a toll road right outside of my house. I pay some taxes. They build a road. They maintain the road. They maintain the road out here actually quite well. It's a nice road. When the one time a year it snows, when they get to us, because they like to plow the interstate first, they come, they plow the road,
yeah, it
you know,
works.
right? The post office. People are like, there was a controversy. Well, the post office isn't making any money. I don't know that the post office needs to make money. Like,
Yeah, just break even. Just don't suck too much money. You know, you don't
yeah,
have to make a profit. You could. It's okay to lose a little.
or break even, because we
Yeah,
pay a lot in taxes to make these things run. So I don't. Again, this is my choice. I don't mind if my taxes go to help people get insulin so that they don't die from diabetes, or get proper health care. But with a for-profit system,
yeah,
you have no impetus to get people in rural areas care, because you can't turn a profit on that, right? You can't. There's no help for the people who live in poor neighborhoods, who live in inner cities. Like, why do they call Malibu the rehab Riviera? Because there's like 40 rehabs or 60, some ridiculous number of rehabs, all in a 14-mile stretch of beach or whatever it is. I mean, the numbers, I could be off one or two, but
right.
you because you want to go to rehab on the beach if you can afford
If you
it,
can afford it, yeah,
right?
absolutely.
But if you can't, then where do you go? There are some wonderful nonprofit programs but they can only serve a handful of people. I'm thinking about like Homeboy Industries in downtown Los Angeles. They work, with gang members, really to get gang members off the street. Some of them have drug problems, some have mental health problems. They deal with all of that. They give them some training. They have a bakery that's actually very, very good. They do some other services as well. But it's like, how many people can they serve? Nothing near the need that's in the area, right? And so is it fixable? Yeah. If we had the will, and I don't see the political will to do that. I just don't see it.
Yeah, it's boy, they've tried twice in a way.
Well, and not only have there been efforts, but then when those administrations get out of office, you see a degrading of the services. I'm in Washington State. Thank goodness I can still access, you know, uh, health care. But I remember when, you know, I was in Texas. Woo, I paid through the nose for a
Ah,
very, very poor healthcare. What other country that, wealthy country, wealthy nation, can you go bankrupt for medical services? I don't know
yeah,
of one.
this is a weird thing. Definitely American unique. It's an American invention.
So is there a solution? I want to leave people with hope and say yes there is, because if you like like my book Ending Addiction for Good, we took it out of print. So you can get it as a used book. I'm not telling you anything that's going to make me any money at all.
Yeah.
It lists a whole bunch of different activities. If you go to my website, there's a whole bunch of different activities that you can do, you can find on YouTube.
Mm,
But we can do so much better. Are there solutions? Yes. When I first got sober, there was nothing for trauma. There is good information for trauma. You can find out about it from the library, but you have to. So like somatic experiencing is not generally done by licensed psychotherapists, and therefore it is not generally covered by insurance.
yeah.
So I pay my insurance fee, and then I also pay for my acupuncturist who is not covered, and I also pay for my somaticist who is not covered. Okay. So I spend the greatest proportion of my income goes to mental health services.
And that shouldn't be like that at the
But
individual level.
no, it shouldn't be. But I do know what works because I should be dead. I never should have made it past 25. I never should have made it past 25. And
Yeah.
I turned 50 last year.
Happy birthday. That is how what does that feel? I mean, like I said, it's kind of like you're writing these books disassociated or not.
No, no, I don't
Like,
write it.
yeah.
I don't write disassociated. I,
Yeah, I
I
mean,
don't.
like, yeah, I had this envision, like, how did you do that? And then you, like you said, like, yeah, that doesn't happen. You can't.
What I did was I wrote through pain.
Oh, so you
I
really did sink
I wrote,
into the chair with.
yeah, well, you have to, because so my debut novel is coming out probably in September. It's called The Path to God's Promise. And
I saw that. Okay,
yeah, so I'm super excited
talk
about that
about
because
that.
I love fiction, right? I love nonfiction. That's great, but and it's about climate change.
Okay.
And God speaks to a middle-aged Jewish lady who wants nothing to do with him. She's like, "We don't do that. We're not prophets."
Yeah.
And God
Yeah.
says, "No, listen, lady, somebody's got it. They don't listen to the scientists, the peoples, right? They don't listen to the scientists. Maybe write a book about it, write a novel, right?" So that's what we do. And it looks at climate change, and it looks at, you know, that we make choices.
Okay.
We make choices. And so, but in order to, this is my experience, and I don't know, maybe other authors will tell you something different, but my experience is I have to be able to feel what the character feels.
Yeah.
And in my nonfiction, I write about trauma, I write about addiction, I write about, people who have become homeless or lost their dreams, lost their loved ones, lost all the things. In one of the stories, um, in Rock to Recovery, the one of the first times this guy, Brandon Parkhurst, does heroin, this guy that he idolizes, who's a few years older, Brandon's like 19, the guy next to him is like, "Hey, let me show you how to shoot dope." They shoot dope, and he wakes up, the guy's blue, he's gone, dead, been dead for who knows how long. And that was like one of many, Then he's in his house. His roommate comes in, puts a rifle in his mouth, and kills himself. This is all happening to one guy, right? What do you do when your life is like that? You go shoot more dope.
Uh, you find that you get
If my roommate, of course, my roommate is a miniature schnauzer, but if my roommate put so there's no hope of this
a
happening,
big cookie in his mouth and
right?
choked himself,
Right, but
purposely choked himself out.
my roommate puts a gun in their mouth and kills themselves. You bet the first thought that comes to my mind is, I'm not going to feel this,
I need a beer.
right? Oh, it's a wonderful. So I had just turned 20 years sober. I just celebrated my 20th anniversary, and a dear friend of mine, publisher of my poetry book, which was called Meeting God at Midnight, she died. I was in Los Angeles for a concert, and I was going to fly. She's Jewish, right? So everything happens very fast. We're going to fly out,
Oh,
go to
yeah, yeah.
the funeral, and fly back. Like I'm not even gone 24 hours, like 22 hours. Right before I got on the flight to leave, I was at a friend's house, and I opened my refrigerator. They don't have a drinking problem, so there's a couple of beers in there. And I thought I wanted a piece of cheese because I was hungry, and then I was going to drive myself to the airport. And I opened the refrigerator and I said, "Oh, a beer would be nice with the cheese." I'm 20 years sober. I shut the door to the refrigerator. I sat on my friend's couch for like a minute. And then I started calling my friends who were also sober. And I was like, I just was interested in picking up a beer. Why? Because I don't want my friend to be dead. And it's easier. Now, did I pick up? No, I waited 1 minute. I called my friends. Immediately, I have support and I'm fine within 5 minutes, right? But
Whew, close.
20 years in, I'm like, oh, I don't want to feel this. Because it's in my mind
Yeah, yeah.
still, it's easier to just blot that out than to go to my friend's funeral and feel my friend's really gone. She had a very aggressive form of cancer. She was gone in a few months. Gone, right?
How do you do? Yeah,
So, but what I've learned is that I get all the moments. I don't just get the awful moments. Those come. That's life. There's good, there's bad. And there's a lot of not really anything, right? Like I'm not really like if I'm washing the dishes, am I really present? No, I'm usually thinking about, some other task I have to do or a conversation I had that didn't go the way I want or whatever, like everybody else, not necessarily in the moment. But when I'm in the moment, and this is what I've learned by being in my body, and I probably get this better than other people because it's so new for me. The feeling of those warm slippers on cold feet,
I got it.
the taste of the blackberries that I pick from the bush out in front of my house at the end of August when they're just at
Yeah,
their
yeah.
ripest.
Washington State's just packed with
So, right? So beautiful. Or the smell, I live right on the ocean, the smell of the salt
yeah,
coming because we get lots of wind up here in the
yeah.
sound, like the smell of the ocean, that salty smell, the
I know it.
sound of one of my cats purring, like when they're just, when they cuddle up to you and it's that
Yeah,
little purring,
yeah.
like
It's just got the engine going.
I get to that and so that's what, I understand when the Buddhists or the Hindu talk about being, in the moment, the whole
Yeah,
mindfulness movement. Most of the time I'm not in the moment, like I'm doing my thing. But when I am, the way we sense things is in our bodies.
yeah. And you have that super hyper already hyper alert experiences. And
Sure, but those aren't really real.
Yeah,
That
but I mean,
hyper
but
alertness.
transferring that into your real now yourself, you've got that
Right, so
appreciation.
that hypervigilance is a way of keeping back.
Yeah, yeah.
Now being in my body, and it's wonderful because my practitioner who does the somatics with me, she stops me all the time. She's like, "Well, what does that feel like?" And she's wonderful because she's like, "What are you feeling?" It's like, "I don't know, something." Like anger, I can usually identify. Fear sometimes, and then pretty much anything else, I'm like, I don't know, something. There's some sort of emotion happening, like overwhelming joy, I suppose I could, But like, I'm like, I don't know, and so she helps me to identify, and she helps me. She's like, all right, let's stop for a minute. Where do you feel that in your body?
Ooh.
Right? Are you feeling anything in your body? And then she'll do exercises with me to help me if I'm really out of it, which I haven't been now for a couple of years. But when that happens, it's like, okay, put your feet on the ground, do some breathing exercises, do this
Mm.
or that. One of the things that I found that I work a lot with combat veterans with PTSD, and one of the things that we find a lot of is they can't do breathing exercises very well. Why? Because it asks you very often to close your eyes. That's not happening for a whole bunch of us. But even with your eyes open, to try to feel the breath go all the way down into the diaphragm and then come back up and feel the oxygen like dissipate in through your body. Oh hell no. No, triggered all to blazes. Like nope, nope, nope. So then how do we I used to not breathe. I used to like just right just a little bit to keep me going, and that was it, and to really learn how to breathe and
Begin
not
to
be
breathe.
triggered by
Yeah.
that. So this is all that what somatics have taught me, what radical life and specifically has taught me, is how to be present and how to breathe and how to be here. But then the payoff isn't just that, oh my God, sometimes your friend dies and that's a bummer, right? On a magnitude that you didn't know was possible, but also I am very attentive to all those little things, even things that are uncomfortable. Like, I'm 50, I get hot a lot. Not really hot flashes, but just hot enough to
Hot.
be
Yeah,
uncomfortable.
like burning, something inside burning.
Yeah, where it's like, do I have a fever? And then you take, and it's like normal.
No.
You're like, oh, but not like, oh my gosh, I have to take all my clothes off. Not a true hot flash. Well, it's uncomfortable. I don't like it, but I get to feel it. And then when I turn the air conditioner on and it blows right on me, right? And I'll have shorts on. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. So I get all of it. I don't like to read. I don't like to read on a Kindle. I want a book.
I'm a
I
book
like
person.
the feel
Yeah.
of that paper, but I also love an audiobook because someone who has a really good voice and can tell a story.
Yeah, I get
Yes,
it.
please.
Yeah,
So when
yeah.
I'm driving, I live in the country, so when I'm driving all around to all my, appointments, and I get to be there then with that enjoyment of the sound, the taste, the smell, the
Yeah, yeah.
whatever. My friends, I love strawberry cake. My friends for my 50th birthday, they baked a strawberry cake. The smell of the strawberry cake in the oven.
Amazing.
It's magic. It's magic. I get that now because I learned how to use my body. And that's what the human experience is, right? You know, we're made of stardust. There's a whole bunch of evidence from part of the Society for Consciousness Studies. There's a whole bunch of evidence that this is just all some sort of matrix illusion, right? Our bodies are not actually dense like this. They're mostly open space. We experience it as dense as matter, but really it's a bunch of electrons. Some of my electrons are flying into the chair that's beneath me, and some of the electrons from the chair are coming into my backside. Like it's not what it looks. It's a matrix. It's not what it looks like, right?
We
But
are
I'm a
little
spirit.
energies. You were
But
little
this
energies.
right. But this I get to. How do I experience my consciousness? I experience it through this body.
Mm, that's true. You do your
And
body
so
is the
that's what
huh.
having greater mental health, has allowed is for me to have a fuller experience of my humanity. Doesn't mean I don't have fights with people, doesn't mean that I don't screw things up, doesn't mean that everything goes my way, doesn't mean that I didn't burn the chicken. Like, no,
Oh, so
I
true.
get to be here and feel it. And that's the payoff. That is the payoff, that I'm not trapped in the past with something that I can't do anything about.
Hmm.
And I get to teach other people that there are solutions. You're just not going to
Yeah.
get it by going to the doctor,
It's
which
a
is
powerful
unfortunate.
story, Constance. Wow. I mean, and I got to say, thank you for sharing. That is, it's a lot to, I think I said at the beginning, it's a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
Um, but I think your story is unique in a lot of ways, but not, I mean, the trauma part is not so unique. But the manifestation and how people find recovery and how they find themselves, um, I think everybody's journey is obviously going to be pretty unique. But I love the fact that you've leaned into it to try to help other people.
Yeah.
And
Well, listen, I don't, it's not right if I'm the only one who gets it. Just because I
yeah,
got lucky I got lucky to work at a the treatment facility that funded me to go do this research.
yeah,
We one of the things that that Richard and I did at that facility is we made the decision this was not going to be proprietary.
hmm,
You weren't only going to get this information if you came to that treatment facility.
right,
We wrote it in a book, popular press, nonfiction book. I went and spoke all around the world for 5 years. We took that book everywhere.
wow,
I was at the veterans, the VFW, the Veteran of Foreign Wars, right after Obama. Like Obama was on the stage, and then a little bit later, up comes Doc, right? And everybody who went there had access to the book. We want people to know
I love it.
how to recover. And now, because I'm getting more into trauma and more into, you know, uh, community development and climate change, these same principles apply.
Yeah,
And if we listen to and learn from marginalized communities,
hmm,
they have so much wisdom
yeah,
that has been pushed away and said, no, 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 no. Your skin's the wrong color. You don't have enough money.
no
You're
science.
Yeah, your genitals are the wrong. Yeah, you didn't do it through the scientific. By the way, we do things through the scientific method all the time. Look at how many climate scientists are telling you there is hello California flooding right now after decades of drought. Like, please let me know that this is. But we do things scientifically, and then the public says, "Oh,
Yeah, well, it's inconvenient, super inconvenient.
well,
How did
that's
how
what
do people?
Al Gore said."
Yeah, yeah, the inconvenient truth. How do people find you and find your work?
I'm all over the internet. So my website is constancescharf.com. I'm on all the socials, uh, TikTok,
You name, yeah,
Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. It's all at Dr. Scharf,
I love it.
Dr. Scharf. So you can look me up anywhere. I love to collaborate with people. I'm working on another book about trauma, and getting ready for the debut novel, right?
That's exciting. Constance, thanks so much for sharing your story. Powerful. What a I mean, you've came out alive, like you said. You shouldn't be 50.
No, no, I should have died by 25.
Yeah.
My friends were taking gentlemen's bets, and one thought I might make it to 28. She said, "Please come to Australia before you die."
And she was the winner because she had the longest number, right? Everybody like, yeah.
She was the one. She was the one who believed in me the most. She was like, "No, I think she might pull it out a little longer than you guys think."
The
You know,
less
and you
she was the one in the least less.
Right, right. And you certainly, someone like me, certainly does not go on to be, a
Uh,
best-selling author, an award-winning author, an
no,
international, you know, uh,
no.
uh, uh, researcher in mental health. Like, that's not what happened. People like me become suicides. People like me become overdoses.
Yeah, yeah. Or
That's what
work in a
happens.
clinic and you're in and out of your own clinic, just a bad story usually.
Yeah.
Fantastic journey, and I'm going to get online and read, and I want to catch up a little bit more just to find, when I read
Sure.
your story as well. I mean, physically, we get on there and hold the book and look at it. Um, awesome journey. I started my trip in Washington and so my other podcast.
Mm.
So I finish in Portland
Oh, okay.
in about 6 months. In about 6 months, I'm back up in the Northwest. But great to meet you, and thanks so much for the story. Um,
Thank you.
yeah, so everybody, you can find Dr. Scharff,
Yes.
and all across social media, and her books and your
My
novels
books are
coming.
all on Amazon and also links on my website.
Yeah, and then your novels coming out.
Probably September, The Path to God's Promise.
Oh, I love that title. Love it, and I imagine the inside is interesting.
We hope so.
An interesting take. Okay, thanks everybody for joining the show, and please do make some comments when you can and share. And just kind of support what we're doing here, trying to bring mental health as kind of a regular conversation and get people like Constance to share a real journey, a real life story of recovery and more than just recovery. Turning it into helping other people. That's what we hope to do. Thanks, everybody.